everyone, my name is Susan Carrier and I'm going to discuss why I think everyone should join the military. So first of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I joined the Army in July of 2000 and I went to Germany right out of basic training in AIT, and I also deployed to Iraq in 2003, and then after that I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and then after that I was in the AGR for Olean and Dunkirk units. So I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the military. So basically, I learned a lot about responsibility, respect, selfless service, anything like that I learned from the military. I mean, I played every sport there was in high school, so I'm a very avid team player. But basically, you know, being in the military has given me a leg up in life. So I have my own house, my own car. I have a lot to look back at and know that I've succeeded in life when it comes to that. So when I think about the Army, I think about all of the ethics and morals that I've learned throughout life based on that. You know, we live by the Army Corps values of loyalty. Do you know this, Austin?
LDR.
What's the next one?
Duty, respect, honor.
Honor, integrity, and personal courage. So a lot of these things, you know, we just kind of live by them every day in the military. So to talk to you a little bit about the responsibility aspect that I learned in the military, when I joined the Army, I didn't really know exactly what to expect. My husband was going in at the time, and I decided to do the same thing at the same time as him because college just plain wasn't working for me. I was playing sports, and I was worried more about my boyfriend than college, and I barely squeaked by, and I wasn't doing well at all. So I was like almost on the verge of not being able to play any sports, and I just didn't know why, you know, I was even in college at that point in my life. But once I actually went in the Army and I did this, I was a supply sergeant in the Army, so I was accountable for up to $300 million worth of equipment at one time. So they were Chinook helicopters and everything. So I'd have to lay out all this equipment for the company commanders to inventory and make sure that everything was accounted for and properly handled and up to standard. So one time I actually did 100% pre-change command inventory and a whole change of command inventory back to back. So those two things right there is huge, and our equipment was in 5 different locations. So I had to plan and coordinate the aircraft to go to these locations to make sure that the commander could see every little piece of equipment. And so by doing that, I earned 2 Army Accommodation Medals. So these medals are really serious, you know. A lot of people much higher ranking than me never achieved those medals before. So a lot of people were really surprised at how much that I was able to accomplish in my military time. So when I went to my unit, AGR unit in Dunkirk and Olean, that unit hadn't passed an inspection in over 3 years. Yeah, they hadn't passed one in 3 years. And so I was able to pass the first inspection in 2 months. And so I was like, okay, you know, like everybody was really blown away by that because that's kind of unheard of, you know. The commander at first didn't think they needed someone like me, you know, in their supply room. And I was like, sure, sir, are you sure you don't need me in your supply room? He's like, well, what can you do? I said, do you guys have hand receipts and is all your equipment accounted for? And he said, no, we don't have this PBS system. And I said, well, sir, you can do that manually. And he was like, sold. So that's how I got that job, you know. So these guys were like, you know, at first everybody was like against me and they didn't want to really work with me. But once they saw that how much I could do for them, then they all started working together with me. You know, the clothing records, each individual soldier was responsible for $4,000 worth of equipment. So when I got there, all their clothing records were out of whack. Not one person's clothing record was correct. So some people had old gear on their record when they should have had new gear on their records, and it was just all messed up. So I talked to the commander about doing this thing where if people turned in their excess equipment, and when they turned it in, there would be incentives. So the top prize was to get a weekend off of drill. You would love that, wouldn't you?
That would be nice.
So weekend off of drill, and so everybody wanted to be involved in turning in their extra equipment. So I ended up taking back $5,000 worth of equipment just to issue it back out to the soldiers that were missing stuff, so they didn't have to pay for it, and the government didn't have to pay for it. So this helped not only the soldiers, but it also helped the government save money. And so one time I was up in Albany, and this colonel stopped me, and he's like, Carrier? He saw my name tag on my uniform, and I was like, yes, sir. And he's like, my wife, she pulls at my purse strings, but you pull at my heartstrings. I was like, why? What do you mean, sir? Excuse me? And he said that it was because I had turned in so much excess equipment. I cleared my BE8C Delta on my property book, and that was like a big deal because excess equipment, they would brief about it every single week, and they would talk about it and how much of a burden it was, because when it's excess on your books, it just needs to get have all this proper paperwork done, and then it has to be shipped up to Albany. So yeah, I was really surprised and caught off guard by that. And then I was recommended for the Supply Excellence of the Year Award, and I couldn't see my timer. So I was recommended for the Supply Excellence of the Year Award in 2012, and that same year I got promoted to E6, and I also won the AGR NCO of the Year Award. So that was a little bit, it was really difficult because they kind of grill you, and they ask you tons of questions about the Army, any kind of Army standard, and the one thing that I was best at is communicating effectively as a leader. They pulled me in and said that I was the best at it out of everybody in the whole battalion. So I find it easy to lead groups of people now, and I find it easier to get any mission accomplished. So now that even though I'm not in, I'm still able to get things accomplished easier than I would be if I never had those skills in the military. So that's why I'm trying to stay here. The point I'm trying to get at is that I think everyone should join the Army before they ever go to college, just for the simple fact that it teaches you all these skills, and it will help you, in the long run, not only for leadership, responsibility, accountability, it just helps kids to grow up and learn and take ownership of themselves, and it teaches you how to be a better person. It teaches you just to be able to hold your own and to get out on your own 2 feet, because when I was young, I wasn't handed everything. I had to earn it. So I just think it's really good for kids and high school graduates to learn to hold their own and take care of themselves and take care of other people and have that sense of taking care and having pride in your country. So I just really think it's so very important for people to join the military. So does anybody have any questions? Andrew?
I know you spoke to great lengths about how it benefited you. What are your thoughts on the government reinstating, and not necessarily a draft, but a mandatory military experience for 2 years? We're pretty much like the only country that doesn't require, including Canada and Mexico. It does not require any type of civil service out of high school.
I think it would be a great idea, to be honest with you personally. I think that they should implement that. Any other questions?
What made you choose the Army versus the Marine Corps, the Navy, Air Force?
Because my family, my whole entire family was Army. We're born and bred Army. That's why.
Loyalty.
All right, thank you for your time.
She's got a question. I know she does. How do you join?